Now that we've gone through Solidity and we've seen how to write a Solidity contract and we've written our auction contract and deployed it, we can then move on to building our front end and seeing how to interact with our smart contract on the front end. So open the auction app that you created earlier. There's still a couple of things that we have to do to set up the Angular app to work with our Web3 contracts. The first thing we will do is to install some polyfills. Now, when you start trying to use some Web3 libraries with your Angular projects, you realize that a couple of those libraries contain libraries that were built for Node on the server side. Since the front end we're building is meant to render on the client side, some of those libraries will not work the way they are. So you need to find a way to polyfill them out or disable them totally. So open the terminal for your auction app. Remember to change directory to your auction app directory and then run the following command. So there are a couple of plugins that we'll need to polyfill. So just run this command. You'll see the command in a text file in your project. So while that is working, also go to your TypeScript config file, go to your compiler options and add the following parts there. Okay, when we're done with that, let's try and run our Angular app to see that it still works well. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's try and rerun our app again. Okay, while that is done, let's add a polyfill to your source folder and just add this buffer and a global and the process variable to your globals or your window variable. In order to get a polyfill to work, we need to update our angular.json. By the way, how this will be set up, if you just go to the GitHub repo and open the Angular folder. So in your angular.json file, go to your polyfills in your build options and add this. So go down again and add now we're almost done with our setup. Okay, so one last thing. If you go to our app components, you see that Angular has put some default code there. We need to replace that. And we're also going to use Bootstrap just to make our interface look a little presentable. So in order to do that, we're going to add ng Bootstrap. ng Bootstrap is an Angular Bootstrap library that comes with Angular widgets and components, different components. They have different components that are all built for Angular: accordion, carousel, alert, modal navs, and it allows you to use default Bootstrap styling for your page. So we're going to add this to our project. So yes. So you can run that command, ng add, ng bootstrap, and Angular will use the schematics setup to add the package and set it up for our correct Angular version. So yes. Okay, so there was an error, legacy peer depths. So let's add this to our npm config, and then let's run this. Great. So ng bootstrap has been installed. So let's run our app again. Do that by running ng save. Okay. Okay, let's rename this. It's polyfills. Okay, so one last thing, we need to include this. In our tsconfig.app.json file. Then we need to build and resave. So getting Angular set up to run Web3 applications sometimes has some challenges, some snags here and there. But once you've gotten it up and you just have a template to go, then every other thing becomes secondary and becomes easy to use. Yeah, we're good. Another error from the polyfills, OS and constants. Let me see, can fix that. Let's go to our polyfills. Since we don't need the OS constants for now, we're going to comment it out and we'll enable it and resolve the errors. We need that. Okay, so for now, let's see how our application looks. You can see it running on localhost 4200. Okay, so our application is up and running. We're going to change that, how it looks. Let's replace it with some Bootstrap elements. So let's start with a nav bar. Let's call this option. And let's remove this. and just leave the router outlet. But we're going to move the router outlet into a Bootstrap container. So and then just add this. Okay, great. So for now, let's update that and just see how it looks. Okay, great. So let's change this. Let's leave it as container. Okay, better. Let's move that to the top. Let's center it. So this will be a row and then column. With some padding or with some margins at the bottom, and we can then remove this. Okay, and we're good to go. Okay, great. Let's leave some space at the top. Just small. So we have a Angular DAPP running with a nav bar, with a title bar, and then some place where the router will replace with content from different components. And we are done with our initial setup. Great.